from Vallejo, California, the one and the only Pastor Shamar Lewis is coming at this time. Can you clap your hands for him?
Well, hello to everybody. Hello to you. I want to recognize my beautiful wife right here with me. Wave your hand, girl. There you go. Thank you. I just want to sit and talk to you. Is that okay? I don't want to preach to you, but I just want to talk to you. So as Johnathan have said, my name is Shamar Lewis. I get the opportunity to pastor Fresh Start Church in the city of Vallejo, California. We launched in 2016 with 5 people. Yeah, 5 people. I always tell people we got it out the mud, y'all, literally. And my assignment is to speak to you regarding dynamics between the media ministry and pastors. And so I want to be very practical with you as we start off. I give you that background of us starting with 5 people because if you come into our 2023 us, you may think we started like that. And sometimes, if you're not careful, people see where you're at but never ask, where did you begin? Right? And so Sister McMillan did so well. Just give her another hand. And she already hit on the anointing. I want to speak as it relates to the dynamics with the media ministry and the pastor. I want to speak from a culture standpoint. All right? I think we stay in a time right now where many people are focused on going viral versus being impactful. Right? And for us back in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we didn't have a ministry. We didn't have a production ministry. But when 2020 hit, it made us pivot just like everybody else. And one of the things that we had to do was make a decision. Do I immediately go outside of the church to fill a ministry role, media ministry role, or do I first try to build in-house? Right? Some people would tell me, no, go outside. Go outside. You need everything right now. But what I had to think about was the long-term game. And I've realized, and you got to realize how God has created you. I'm a builder. I get excited when I don't see all the pieces together, but I see what it can be. Right? And so when we start, before we started our media ministry, I had to first go over with them. We're not trying to go viral. We're trying to be impactful. So before we start, let's be clear on the vision and mission of the house. Right? So the vision of Fresh Start is to create a Christ-centered atmosphere that fosters discipleship. How we do that, the mission. We provide hope and a fresh start through the word of God that transforms lives. Now that we know that's the vision and mission, the question is, how do we as a ministry team make sure that goes throughout the airwaves? So it's not just good enough to just post a clip. It's not good enough just to post pictures. We have to be intentional in what we're trying to communicate to people that's not at our church yet. Now, when we started our church, I always tell people, we didn't start with a lot of people that had a church background. I started with people, either one, I'm their first pastor. Where when they come, they like, Pastor, it's a blessing that I literally come on Sundays. I'm telling you. They're not church, right? Or we have those that have been a part of a church, but they never were discipled. So being a person that knew how to do church, my goal at Fresh Start was we're going to have a great church service, but we want to make sure you know how to live on Monday after you leave Sunday. And while those that come experience that, we need to make sure that we are creating a distraction-free atmosphere for those that have not come yet. So with what we're projecting on the media, I don't just want my sermon up there. There should be things up there where somebody looks at a picture and says, I felt that hug. That smile made me feel like I want to go in those doors. Right? Now, in order to properly build that media and dynamics of the pastor team, one of the things that we had to be clear on is culture. I'm going to say this again. Culture is so important. So when we started with our media team, I had to help them understand that those that are back there switching, those that are on a camera, those that are calling shots and taking pictures, you are not just switching. You are not just hitting the computer. You are intentionally behind something that somebody is going to see, and it can change their life. So what I had to do as a pastor and media team was to help them understand you're not just serving to fill a role. You're serving to fulfill the mission of the house. So in order to fill the mission of the house, you got to understand the mission in itself, and you have to understand the culture of the house. So when we talk about culture, family, oftentimes culture doesn't just happen, right? So when I was teaching culture to our media team, one of the things we had to deal with was defining culture. And so I define culture 3 ways: why you do it, what you do, and the excitement behind what you do. Why you do it, very clear, to help promote the mission of the church. What you do, in other words, how do we operate? Now, we have what I call a value-driven culture, which means I don't drive the culture. The values drive our culture. So when people see that, they're like, well, what's the difference? In other words, the pastor doesn't have to be present for a healthy culture to be built. So now what we do with the media team, we want them to know way before they get on anything, you're not just pushing something. You're not just in back of a camera. We want you to be clear and understand we care about your heart. We care about your spiritual growth, and we care about the mission of this house. Now, oftentimes when it comes to a media team, people usually always just think about how they look. And while that is important, because we stay in a different time now where you can go to the movie theater, you want everything crisp and clean. But one of the things that I had to do with building with the in-house team was to understand they wasn't going to get it right away. Everybody on our media team has never worked a camera, a switcher, has never ever didn't know anything about ProPresenter. On the flip side of that, I also understood everybody in our church wasn't going to be on the choir, wasn't going to be on praise and worship, wasn't going to be an usher, wasn't going to be doing some of the standard things that usually when people join the church, we push them into. So we had to create an opportunity for our creatives to be creative. And some of them didn't even know they were creative because they were so used to church being in a box that once we helped them discover their gifts, we try to help them understand just because you got the gift of shepherding doesn't mean you're called a pastor. But you could be good at building a media team. Right? And so as we were going through the building the team, family, one of the things we had to do, and I had to do, and I want to be very transparent with you, is be patient. Number 2, I had to realize to not compare myself to a ministry that's been in existence for 30 years and we just started. We didn't have the 30-year ministry budget. We didn't have 30 years of experience at our church. We had people that literally came in because they like, look, this name is Fresh Start. I feel like I need a fresh start. So we're like, we're going to help you know God. We're going to help you find freedom. We're going to help you discover your purpose. But it can't be all about you. We're going to help you make a difference. Right? So we always say it can be a little bit about you, but it can't be all about you. Right? So while getting the ministry, the media ministry started at our church family, I as a pastor had to learn patience. Because so often when you're on social media and you scrolling up and down and you seeing all this and that, it is so easy for you to compare yourself and go right to the start of your ministry, and here it is, and now frustrate the people that's volunteering. So one of the things that I have always appreciated about it, everything you see, whether it's posting, whether it's our social media, whether it's Sunday streaming, everybody volunteered. Nobody gets paid. Now, for us, why that was important, because I wanted to help another ministry understand you don't have to have a big budget to operate in excellence. But you got to be honest and start with where you're at. Because it doesn't matter if you get $3,000 worth of cameras, but nobody behind them know how to work it. So like Ms. McMillan said, you get all this expensive stuff, and we started with our HD cameras, and we were struggling with them because I'm trying to figure out why I'm out of focus. And then this is what happened. People would say, "Oh, y'all need better cameras. Oh, we got new cameras," and then you realize when you upgrade, you need more expertise behind the camera to learn how to work it. So what we realized, it doesn't matter the quality so much of the camera. Don't get me wrong, you want the best. If you don't have trained people behind it to work it. So what we did, family, as a portable church, because we break down and set up every Sunday. For 8 years, break down and set up every Sunday. In order to build and when I say dynamic, we're still learning. But what we had to do was continue to pitch vision to our team, to not be bought into pastor, but to be bought into the vision of the house. Now, what I did and what I said to those that was volunteering, my role is to make sure we have the best equipment as possible without going into debt. Your role is to learn it to the best of your ability, not because you just want to serve, but because there's somebody out there waiting for a fresh start. So what we did was continue to bring back to the forefront of our media ministry, the mission of the house. But it had to start with culture. What is the culture? The values drive our culture. What are your values? One of our values is excellence. One of our values is integrity. One of our values is Christ-centered. One of our values is honor. One of our values is leadership. One of our values is innovation. All those things, one of our values is discipleship. So one of the things that we had to continue to do between the pastor and media team, when I sat down with them, is to understand that we're not going to compare ourselves to other people. We're going to do the best with what we got, and we're going to operate in excellence. Now, we stay in a different time, you all, because now what ends up happening is so much more to it in your media ministry. It's so much more to it than there's live streaming. You have post-production. Then you need a social media team. Because social media keeps you visible, right? So one of the things that we did, one of the things we have at our church, we have a shot list. Every Sunday, our media team knows there's specific shots that they should be hitting on. Why? Because at the end of our Sunday service, the people that were not there should be able to see the story of the service based upon what you took a picture of. Because we want them to understand you're not just taking pictures, you're not just catching video, you are a storyteller. So somebody that's online, that's viewing the shots, that's viewing the video, while they may not have a relationship with Christ yet, there should be something on the shot list that caused them to be interested enough to say, I want to come check that out. Why am I telling you this? Because oftentimes people will start a media ministry and just be like, I just want to look good. I just want to get us on live. And what you don't realize, you will wear your volunteers out when you don't continue to bring back why we do what we do again. Wait, we just want clear stream? Wait, we just want to make sure Pastor got a clip? We just want to make sure we got pictures? No, it's a story behind it. So another thing, you all, when you are building a media ministry, don't sleep on finding out who you have in the house. Do not sleep on asking, is there anybody in here that maybe have never done this but is interested in learning? Because there's somebody sitting out in the pews or sitting in the chair that's looking around and still trying to find where do they fit in at, because you have not started it or made it available publicly. Right? So once we had the people, once we had the team, we wasn't shy about reaching out to people that was already doing this. So what I did, I reached out to somebody. He don't even look like me, not my color. But I saw he was killing it somewhere. I said, listen. And whatever, exactly what you said. He was, I don't even want money, Pastor. I see what you're trying to do. This is what I say. I say, can you come for the next 2 weeks and just train us on our stuff? You want me to bring my industry stuff? We don't want none of your stuff. Show us how to work what we got. Now, this was important for me because I knew during the pandemic time, there were a lot of people, not everybody, that was taking advantages of churches because we didn't have what we desired. So what they would do is say, I'll come in and do it. Now you so addicted to it, you have to continue paying them this large amount. And now you haven't even built the in-house team. So all the way from the beginning, I said, whatever we do, we go build in-house. And then we'll bring somebody in to help us be better. But I never want to bring somebody in from the outside that then we have to depend on. And then when they drop us, now we have nothing to do. So not only did I challenge our team to grow in what they didn't know, not only did I get somebody to help come train us, but we created what we call SOPs, Standard Operating Procedures. Everything in our church has standard operating procedures. I'm about to say something, and some may not like this. My leaders, when we started, the first group of leaders, their first responsibility was to create standard operating procedures, systems. Why? Because this should be able to run even if you're not here. I'm going to go a step further. I need this. Here it is. Watch this. I need to know that this is not personality driven. Because if I have to remove you and I don't have SOPs, now you take everything with you and now we in shambles. What am I sharing? And so what we had to do is not just be enamored with the front end of the product, but we had to take time on the back end and say, wait, now that you created this as a leader for the media ministry or other teams in our church, I want you to take a Sunday and act like you're not there, make sure those SOPs are there, and see what they do. Because oftentimes we get in panic mode and people cannot have balanced life because the whole team depends on them being present instead of developing a system that helps the team run without the person feeling like they can't go on vacation. So when it came to our media ministry, we had to be clear on scheduling. We had to be clear on getting training for things we did not know. We also had to be clear on creating SOPs. And also, I had to take time to meet with our media team to constantly reiterate to them, what's the mission of the house? What are our goals for the next few weeks? At one point, sermon clips, I'm like, it gotta be more to our church than my sermon clips. Because we stay in a time where people can stay at home and listen to a sermon. So I need them to feel like not only do I want to come in and be fed the word of God, but I'm missing fellowship. I'm missing koinonia. I'm missing that hug. They call us the hugging church. They call us the hugging church because someone told us before they even came to our church, they said, man, when I look at the pictures and I see the quality and everything, I see y'all hugging church. Yeah, she been there. Because we were like, we don't have all the bells and whistles, but nobody's going to beat us at loving people. Nobody's going to beat us at loving people. We don't have all the best of everything, but I'm telling you right now, when it comes past everything else, you have great singing, that is good. You have great media ministry, that is great. But when it comes to loving on people, hear me. When you love somebody, they'll forgive you for a bad sermon. Pastor just didn't have it this week, y'all, but we just love it there. He loves on us. I mean, oh my God, we are not leaving just because of that Sunday bad sermon. I'm trying to help you. So as a pastor family, let me help you understand this. When building our media team, it wasn't just a team. We developed relationship. We did life together. So it wasn't just about, because if you're not careful, you'll make it a means to an end, and they'll feel like you don't care about them. So it started being intentional. Quarterly, we go out, just have fun with each other. But then there going to be times when it's time for pastor to call a meeting. It's not like, oh, because every time he calls us, it's just he wants something. No, let's start. Let's sit down and see how can we get better. So here it is. Number one, have you put the call out to people in your church publicly? Is there anybody here that would love to learn about media, even if you have no experience. Number two, do your media team have SOPs? Number three, is your media team clear on what you are trying to project to people that haven't even come to your church yet? Think about it. And four, just because something starts good and it looks like it's running well on your media team, you should still pause and evaluate, how are we doing? What's the data? Would you view us if you wasn't part of the church? Me and my wife would ask our daughter, if you wasn't our daughter, would you still come to our church? We want to know. And I want to share this before we go. Do we have time for some questions? Okay. And I'll take some questions. I grew up at a time where we didn't really teach about serving the church until you was an adult. It was like, when I become an adult, then I can serve. Well, what we teach at our church, once you pass sixth grade, now we open up what we call our ministry, our dream team. You have the opportunity to get plugged in to our media team. So some people are like, look, I don't do the camera, but I'll be on the phone all the time. Look for ways to utilize some of the young people in your church that are already on their phone while they at church. Hey, you already on the phone. You know what? Because some of them don't realize that they can use the phone for ministry because nobody has taught them like how to use it. And then I'll say this to you. Be flexible with your media team. That is one of the teams that really serve every Sunday. Yep. Hey, some Tuesday. Yep. We got Bible study virtually on Thursday. There's somebody on the back end. Now, we're getting ready to do something. I'm getting ready to do something that I've never done in the history of our church. In November, we were planning, the last Sunday in December, and this is not for everybody, but the last Sunday in December is the fifth Sunday. We were planning at our team. I'm like, look, y'all, we're going to do service, then we're going to do a day party, etc. afterwards. And I heard the Lord say this, rest. Hear me. Our media team, our production team, our setup and breakdown team have been setting up nonstop with no excuses. Some of them have chosen not to even go on vacation at times because they like, nah, we need this. In November, the Lord said, rest. I'm like, nah, Lord, this is the last Sunday of the year. This is when everybody gonna come that ain't came. They gonna be looking for a church. And I heard the Lord say this, it takes more faith to rest than it does to work. So I share with our media team and production team. I said, listen, you all, our last Sunday is going to be Christmas Eve on the fifth Sunday of December. And I share this with our church. I said, y'all, I love y'all. I said, no one has asked me My team always say, Pastor, you rocking, we rolling. I said, but you know what? The fifth Sunday, I want it to be a Sabbath Sunday for people that all year they've set up, breakdown, stream, live, everything. I said, fam, and I'm nervous because I'm thinking my church go be like, oh man. And they looked at me and you see like, wow. Realizing, they don't realize, I want them to know that your pastor cares so much about you and value that I'm ready to pause and then explain this to our church. But guess what? What you don't realize, they're going to have that fifth Sunday of rest. But guess what? First Sunday, they're going to show up like, oh, my God, Pastor, I can't believe we missed church. They're going to be ready. The momentum. Because our media team, that's one of the teams that serve non-stop, y'all. All right? So I want to pause just to answer any questions from anybody. I know it was very practical information, but do anybody have what questions do you have? Or any follow-up about anything I did say? Yeah.
How do you first being that you are the startup ministry? I'm sure that you have many different pastor friends that may be of a different generation. How do you begin to have that conversation with those that are of a different generation about streaming at the level of relevance and impact?
I think is very interesting because what I find, and I'm very transparent, many older pastors will rather fumble through than ask some of us younger ones. I've seen it. I've literally seen it, or I would get a secret text or call, right? And like, hey, I see what you're doing. And one of the things that I always have to share with them, Dr. Lakita, is sometimes people think like what they see, you just come right in and then they can do the same thing next Sunday. And first I always start with, what's the culture of the house? Because sometimes people see the front side of the blessing, but they don't see the back side of it. So sometimes I get the calls, but often from pastors that are older, I've seen them shy away from asking some of us younger ones and fumble through what they don't have to fumble through. I had to be honest with you, right? Yes.
So, I've been in so many different type of
Great show. The great things you're doing, man.
Thank you so much. So my question is, as far as production levels, I know you basically said that you want to build stuff within the house and use volunteers. Now, there is a certain level of church production where it may get to broadcasting.
Correct.
Or things like that. How do you feel comfortable conveying that to your team, or how would you incorporate that type of professionalism with the volunteers? Would that be something like over the years, or how would you help them to understand what that is?
So I always, even with our production team, I'm committed to the vision, not their feelings. Right? So if our values is innovation and excellence, I'm never going to allow our values, I'm never going to let your feelings outweigh the values for the house. So, for example, within our production team, my thing is, first, let's see if they can do it. Then if they can't, wisdom says, now you take that next step to say, look, let me go outside, either one to somebody that can train, someone that now we have to employ, but we're never going to shy away from just being like, look, we ain't got it. We've tried. So it's never where we're stuck to that. I just first said, wait, let's try. Because we were in a season where everybody was just like, outsource, 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 outsource. But what ended up happening, my wife is right here, right? When we first started, at that time, flyers was everything. I thought just because you pay somebody, you go get what you want. And you still don't get what you want, right? So, I start with flyers because I was like, my wife would tell me, babe, you being cheap now. Come on, go outside, right? So I would go outside, and what would happen is I expected something that I wasn't getting in return because I paid. So because of my frustration, my wife started teaching herself. Now from there, my wife will be honest and tell you, they got to a certain level where she hit, and she was like, babe, nah, I need some extra training now, right? And so I say that because I think one is anything that causes us to stop growing, that's when I'm like, look, we're going outside to bring somebody in to train, not necessarily to have to keep, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question? Okay, all right. Any other? Yep. Come on.
What he teaches is we do not operate or invest with where we are. We invest and operate according
Yeah.
to where we want to go.
Yeah.
So even with equipment that we have, we'll train where they can learn it, but we'll try if we have to get something new. Can it serve us with where we are and where we're growing? And that ensures that we're not only operating with kind of what's necessary, but especially with technology, it's changing, our equipment and our investments can keep up with those progressive shifts.
Yeah, yeah. And that she did. I always challenge our ministry. I said, we do not operate based upon where we're at. We operate based upon where we're going. So when we started with 5 and 10 people, we had value-driven culture. Here in the house, integrity, excellence, timeliness is very important. There's certain things we just not going to allow here. I know your last church did, but we're not going to allow it here. Now, there were some things, when we were training up in-house, somebody came from a different church. And you got to understand the definition of excellence is different based upon what you've been exposed to. Because once you've been exposed, you can't be unexposed. So I had to have a conversation where I get that was great there, and that was excellent, and we have nothing to say about that. But there's the definition of excellence looks different here. Right? And so all that starts with, okay, just kind of back to your question, operating based upon where we're going and not where we're at. So now my mindset is like you stated, okay, do we have people on our team do we have people on the team that we can be with where we want to go? And we're like, they're growing, but they're not there. So next question. Any other question, comment? All right. Thank you all so much for your time.
Y'all say it with me. What a word.